So I've got with me here a very interesting mini PC because it's modular. It's called the Khadas Mind, and this is the brains of it right here. Tiny mini PC. As you can see, it's small, but it packs quite a bit of power. So we have within it 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM that's running at 5,200 megahertz. A terabyte SSD, you can add an additional SSD, and I'll go over that in this video. And it does have Iris Xe graphics with the 1360p that it does run here. That's its chipset. So it's from Intel, it's a Core i7, it's got 16 threads, maximum turbo is 5 gigahertz. And you're probably thinking, well, integrated graphics, Iris Xe, so how is this interesting? It's not gonna be that powerful. It's definitely not gonna be for gaming. Well, this is where it gets really cool because it's a modular PC. They have what is called Mind graphics. And you can simply just plug this unit here, the Mind, into that graphics, and you've got dedicated graphics then. So it will turn it into a gaming mini PC, a production powerhouse then. But what I do have with me is the Mind dock. So this adds a lot of I/O. We've now got a lot more ports. With this right here, it simply plugs in. It then adds speakers, a volume control, fingerprint reader, a LAN port on there too, and it allows us then, combined with both of them together, to run 4 displays at 60 Hertz, 4K 60 Hertz, which is fantastic. Here is what is included with the Mind portable workstation. So you'll find a Type-C to Type-C cable. We have just a little bit of paperwork in here. So the introduction to the Mind portable workstation and a warranty card and a power supply. So this does support power delivery. You can see it's very small. It's 65 watts, this particular unit. So great that it's nice and compact. And our brains of this whole portable workstation modular mini PC is this, the Mind. So the Mind has a power button here on the front with status LED. Now it's got a built-in battery. Now this is great because what it allows you to do is swap it and move it about. Now the battery, it's not used for running it, it's for keeping it in standby, and that's up to 5 hours. So imagine you have this at your workplace, you can simply just unplug it, and it will keep you exactly where you are with all your work and everything, take it home with you, plug it in again, and you just continue on from there. So it's a metal design to it. Now we've got the Core i7, the 1360p within this, 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM running at 5,200 megahertz, and then a terabyte SSD. So you see here, this is the exit vent. All the hot air is going to come out of this side here on the left. The cooling in it seems to be very good so far, and I'll get onto those thermals and give you the exact results of all my tests and benchmarks and everything later on in the video. So this is the intake where the cool air is sucked in through this part right here. And then the back of it, we have all of these different ports here. Now you can see we've got 2 USB 3s there. Now these are USB 3.2 Gen 2s, HDMI 2.0, and then 2 full spec here Type-C ports. So this one here is the fastest. That's USB 3.2 Gen 2. So it's got a power delivery support, video out 8K 30. You can run 4K 120 Hertz. And here we have power delivery and video out, and then USB 2 with this Type-C port here on the outside. So with all of the ports and then the dock combined with all the display outs, you can run 4 4K monitors at 60 Hertz, which is great. In the underside here, you will find the Mind link. Now, this is very quick, this connection, and they do say that it's rated for up to 10,000 uses here that you can insert it into the Mind graphics, which is the optional dedicated graphics with Thunderbolt that you can use to really just improve that graphics performance instead of using the Iris Xe graphics, just relying on that. And then the OI dock, which I will show you shortly, which is the Mind dock. So it's very quick there. This is going to give us a lot of speed. There's no bottlenecks through this port, and I'm looking forward to the other future add-ons they will have for this modular mini PC setup. There is this, so for expandability, if you want to add another SSD in this, so by default you get the 1 terabyte, it's PCIe 4.0, and pressing down here, it's a magnet that keeps this little lid in place. It pops up. Really nice design to it. In fact, the build quality of everything here is really good. You'll find a 2230 sized SSD bay here. Now, it's PCIe 3.0, so not as fast as the internal one. You can add up to 2 terabytes, and in the inside of it, you could swap out that 1 terabyte drive and add a 2 terabyte. So in theory, we can have 4 terabytes of storage in total with the Mind. Then the dock for it, which is called the Mind dock, and this is an OI dock that adds quite a lot. So we have this high quality little volume knob here too. So it's got there, if you tap it down, a mute button and then volume up and down. It feels really good. I like the feeling of this, and a fingerprint scanner there too. So you don't need to key in passwords if you've got the Mind dock. You can simply use that, and you'll see that right up the front here we have a status LED for it, then a SD card. Now this SD card slot does support speeds of up to 200 megabytes per second, a USB 3.2 here type A, so it's great for the ports. And just before I show you the rear of it where we have all the rest of the ports, I'll show you how it slots in here, and it's really well designed. So you simply just need to line it up, and as a magnet that will pull it into place correctly, and then just give it a gentle little push down on the top, and that's it. It sits in place there, and it's a very tidy, great looking unit. Along the back, we've got two USB 3.2 Gen 2s there, type A's, another two HDMI ports, so they are HDMI 2.0 spec. So we can run using here the type C ports and then those HDMI ports. You can run four 4K 60 displays, which is brilliant. And then we've got 2.5 gigabit LAN here. That is from Realtek, and this type C, this is our power in for the dock. So really good. And as I mentioned before, it's got that internal battery. So if you have it sitting in the dock, maybe at your workplace, and then you want to take it home with you, well, it's very easy just to simply give this a little pull up, and then there we go. You're free to roam about and move about and take this home with you, the Mind, which is our brains of the whole thing. Here we are with our BIOS. Now, unfortunately, this is pretty much locked down to us. Now, if you go into the power and performance menu here, you'll see the CPU power management. Well, there's nothing that we can change, like an overclocking menu to undervolt. I've tried also throttle stop and Intel's XTU. There is no way to undervolt that I can see, unless they do allow us to do this. So under chipset system agent, memory configuration, you can't tweak timings or anything like that either. Graphics configuration is probably the only useful setting here for the Iris Xe graphics. You can allocate a little bit more if you wanted to do so. So you could go in here and say, hey, you know what, I want to give this 160 megabytes and change the aperture size to a gigabyte there if you wanted to do so. So that's really the only thing. Your security there, secure boot, and your boot order. So here we are up and running with Windows 11 Home. So it's not running Pro, and I did run all the updates. There were a few, which is normal with Windows. So looking at the device manager, there just are a few things I wanted to point out when it comes to what we have on board. So the fingerprint reader, this one is an ELAN, and great to have that. So this is, of course, what you gain with the dock. You get the extra ports on it, you get the fingerprint reader, the volume controls. I all showed you all of that stuff there. And that Realtek Gaming USB. It's a 2.5 gigabit LAN on there. So if you need the LAN, you've got that with the dock, which is great. And of course, the processor. So this is going to show up here 16 times because it has, well, the 12 cores, but the 16 threads in total, and a little bit more information on that. You see it right here. So the maximum speed is 5 gigahertz, and it's a 28 watt part. And you will see that later on that it pulls the 28 watts. I've been monitoring the thermals, which I'll talk about very shortly with it. So the internal storage, that 2230 drive, these are good speeds considering how small this particular drive is. Normally the smaller the drives, the more restrictions they have in terms of speed there. But for PCIe 4.0, okay, the speeds aren't the fastest, but for this size drive, it is good, because I see a lot of ones that really suffer on the write speeds. But these writes here from this Western Digital, it's the SN740, very good. A lot of the times you'll see over 5,000 megabytes read, but then the writes will only be 2,000 or 3,000. But no, they are almost the same as the write there. The randoms are also very good there too. So great performance from the built-in SSD. And remember, we do have another PCIe, but it's a 3.0 slot, 2230 as well, if you wanted to expand upon the storage. So the RAM that's in this unit is running in dual channel, 32 gigabytes of it. It's not upgradable, and great that they've given us 32. A lot of brands, they seem to just ship out with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and that'll be of the same spec to the LPDDR5 RAM at the 5.2 gigahertz.
So good that that is there with the 32 straight off the bat. You don't have to worry about having to upgrade it. But of course, you can't do that anyway. So general performance, it goes without saying, really. Everything's quick and snappy. Multitasking is very good. I've not noticed any slowdown. Now, video decoding, playback of a very demanding file, 4K, 10-bit here, 140 megabits per second. And you see that it doesn't drop any frames. It's very smooth, although... funnily enough, it just did a bit of a stutter there. But that's to do with Windows and Intel just when it minimized the controls there for the video player. So it's not actually the fault of this unit here too. So video decoding playback is very good with these demanding files. Like anything you throw at it, VP92 is going to be running fine. Now this is 4K 60 frames per second. And that is not dropping any frames at all. I will just skip ahead to show you. That performance is excellent, as expected for this chipset. It's quite potent. It's got the 16 threads. 5 gigahertz turbo, everything is running really well. But what about our thermals, which I've been monitoring now for the last 13 hours? So it did reach 94 degrees Celsius. You can see it's pulled almost 33 watts. Our power limits, just to confirm, 28 watts and 64. So they haven't lowered it down. That would reduce the performance. Nope, good they have not done that. And the fan noise, well, it sounds a little bit like an Ultrabook under load. So here's a sample of it under full load here, running a stress test. And some benchmarks. Now, I normally like to show you Cinebench R23, but for some odd, weird kind of reason, it always has this error. No matter what I do to launch it, I've tried different versions, downloaded it, and extracted it all, and it's always just the same problem. I spent a lot of time actually trying to solve that issue, and I don't know what is going on there. So I've got here Geekbench at least 6, and you can see from that single core score, they're almost 2,500. It adds excellent performance. So great performer there with the 5 gigahertz turbo. The Core i7 1360p, because it's got the 16 threads, is also very good at multitasking, nearing up towards the 10,000 mark there, which is excellent. That puts it in line with some of the Ryzen 7s that have the 8 cores and 16 threads too. Very similar multi-core scores there. So it's quite a powerhouse. Considering how small it is, it's packing quite a bit. So integrated graphics is the weakness, but we can solve this issue, of course, if you get yourself the Mind graphics dock, which will be out later on. Unfortunately, it's not on hand for me to test it, but that is where you can really boost up this performance. Now, comparing this score of almost 17,000 for integrated graphics with Night Raid here, 3D Mark, that puts it on par with pretty much all of the other Iris Xe graphics with the 96 executional units. The same goes for the Time Spy score here, getting a graphics score there of close to 1,700 and a score of around, I think 2,000 is the highest I've seen from this chipset. It's not that far off. So again, on average, it's about what you would expect out of the Iris Xe graphics. So if you do need more in terms of performance, maybe you're going to be editing some videos or you want to turn this into a little gaming mini PC, definitely go for the graphics dock. Video editing, this is something that it can handle even without the addition of that graphics dock, the dedicated graphics. With the Iris Xe graphics, you can see this is a basic video of mine, a review that has very little in terms of grading. In fact, there's nothing, I believe, nothing there with grading and very little just B-roll. So it handles this just fine. I've got the playback resolution set here to a quarter, so this is not holding it up. It doesn't seem to drop any frames. And it's the Iris Xe graphics that's helping out. Now, export times, I'll do my standard test here, which is a minute of footage at the 4K preset for YouTube, and we'll see how long it takes. It should be around or under the 30-second mark, definitely with this spec. Okay, so it's about to finish up, and there we go. That was about 30 seconds, you could say, after my little delay there. Now, if you do get, again, the dedicated graphics dock for this, then it will be much better. A lot quicker here at encoding 4K video. The editing will be a lot better too as well, using the CUDA cores instead of just relying on the 1360p's integrated graphics, the Iris Xe. Then gaming now, this is The Witcher 3, the latest expansion pack with all the high-res textures, and they improved a lot of things with it, the enhanced edition basically. And you see only 30 frames per second in this very demanding area of the map. One of the largest cities, a lot of NPCs around, there's a lot here to render. So temperatures are normally in the late 70s, early 80s when gaming with the Iris Xe graphics. And you'll see that it's at 100% the load here of the Iris Xe graphics. So this part, the frame rate's not amazing. You can just kind of play this game. Ideally, I would love to have 60 frames per second. But if you do, again, get that graphics dock, you want the graphics performance, plug that in, and then you'll be able to game at 1080p with really good frames and even 1440p. Nothing like this. Grand Theft Auto 5, this is 1080p with the settings set to normal and the viewing distance and the pedestrian density and everything else in the middle here. So just get out of the car. We should see out of the car here probably about 70 frames per second, which it is. So that puts it on par with other Iris Xe systems that I've tested out with the 96 executional units. Now, it does have those built-in speakers in the Mind dock, and this is great because it means that you don't have to worry about taking along some external speakers, because most mini PCs, they don't have built-in speakers. In fact, pretty much all of them don't. I'd say at least 95% of them. So they're in there. They sound pretty good. I'd rate these as pretty much like speakers you'd find in a gaming laptop. So here's a sample of them at about 80% volume, just to give you an idea of what they sound like. They're good. They've got a bit of bass to them too as well. As for Linux support, well, I managed to boot it up. You can see this is Linux Manjaro using the open source drivers. The problem I ran into is with the internet. So for some reason, it's not showing or detecting the wireless 6E card. That's from Intel. It doesn't seem to want to show up there for some reason, but I think with a little bit of patience, you should be able to get this up and running. Now, the Mind dock, that is working, so I can enable mute, adjust the volume. So that's not a problem.
So there we go, that is the Khadas Mind. I think this is a fantastic idea, having a modular PC setup. And it really does add to the upgradability of mini PCs, which is normally a bit, well, complicated. You normally cannot upgrade the graphics. They're normally all integrated graphics anyway. But the fact that we can get the Mind graphics and simply just drop the Mind on top of that modular dedicated GPU is fantastic, and I hope I do get my hands on that. If I do manage to get it, they send it out to me, I will most certainly have a follow-up video testing that out, showing you what it's all about. I'll give you the temperatures, what kind of performance you can expect from it. The dock, I love this idea as well. It adds speakers, fingerprint reader, volume controls, which make it really easy just to adjust it on the fly. And then you get those additional ports on there too. So with the current setup with the Mind dock here and the Mind, you can run 4 displays at 4K 60, which is great. And it runs with power delivery. So if you've got other power delivery chargers, maybe one in your office, one at your home, you can simply move about with it. And because it's got the battery within it, it won't disconnect. And you don't have to worry about it suddenly powering off and you lose all your data either. If you do get a power cut, because it will still be up and running in standby mode for up to 5 hours. So it gives you plenty of time to simply just lift it off the dock and take it home with you if you were using the dock at, say, your workplace or something. And you're going to have the other modular units, the other add-ons for it. So there will be like a screen like this that you'll be able to plug the Mind into. It'll have a built-in battery for it. That is fantastic. My only area of criticism of this really is the SSD drive size. Unfortunately, it's the 22mm by 30mm, making it a little bit limited in the capacities and speeds we can get. They're a little bit more expensive. I would have loved to have seen a full-size SSD in here, but as it is the size of it, you can see the engineering side of things. It would have made it really complicated to be able to try and fit that in there. So it's a bit of a compromise there, but it's not too bad. And if you really wanted huge capacity, well, you can go up to 4 terabytes if you upgrade the drive that's already installed and add a PCIe 3.0 drive with a 2 terabytes. So you can get 4 terabytes in total with the Mind here. So I think this is a great little mini PC, and I'm so looking forward to testing out that Mind graphics. Thanks a lot for watching this review, and I do hope to see you back in the next one. Bye for now.